Hey, I'm Nick Kalikas.
Welcome to the show where you get first look at the latest odds before they hit the sports books.
And I'm Miguel Iturrate.
This is the place for a unique look at MMA from a gambler's perspective.
And this is MMA Oddsbreaker.
Welcome to the show. I'm Nick Kalikas alongside Miguel Iturrate.
On today's show, we're going to take a quick look at UFC on Fox 2, this weekend's three main fights.
And on today's Oddsbreaker segment, I'll be joined by Jeff Osborne from Hook and Shoot and Luca Fury from ShareDog.com. Both guys will help me break 4 original fight odds that haven't hit the sportsbooks yet.
Let's start the show off with our preview and our picks for this weekend's UFC on Fox 2 event. Nick, what do you think of the changes?
Well, a big shakeup with Munoz pulling out, Chael Sonnen now taking on Michael Bisping, so they matched up that fight. And then the other fight now with Damian Maia was left with no opponent, so they brought in Chris Weidman. He accepted the fight, and that's going to be a great fight too. So 3 awesome fights to take place, and of course I'm super excited about Davis and Rashad Evans. That should be a great fight too. Let's get right into it. Let's start off with Bisping and Sonnen now. So Munoz pulls out a different matchup completely for Michael Bisping here. He's facing a better wrestler, obviously, in Chael Sonnen than he was in Maia. I think Maia would have struggled to get the fight to the floor. I don't think Sonnen will. He's a 4.5 to 1 favorite. What do you think about this fight?
I favor Sonnen in the fight. I think it's a good fight for Sonnen. I like it for the fans too because I think it's one of those where both guys, bring an edge. Munoz is still coming into people's awareness, basically. People are starting to think about Munoz as a contender and things. Bisping's been around a long time. Sonnen's been around a long time. They're both going to talk about the fight. They're both going to give it their all. And I think it's a good fight on paper. I do favor Sonnen. I think Sonnen's skill package is just the exact package to beat a guy like Bisping.
Yeah, that's the thing. Unfortunately for Bisping, it looks like the style matchup is bad for him. But I know that Bisping knows what he's up against. He's not a dumb fighter. He's been working off his back tremendously. So if I was Chael Sonnen, I'd be a little cautious because we know that Michael Bisping's not a dumb fighter. He's going to come in with a game plan. He knows he's going to be put on his back. He's going to go for those submissions. Now, has Bisping's submission game improved enough to catch Sonnen? We'll have to see. So I would say the big edge is with Sonnen. That's why you're seeing the line at 4.5 to 1. I'm going to pick Sonnen to win the fight. Wouldn't be shocked if Bisping somehow manages to get the win because he's a winner. Let's face it, man. He wins fights. That's what he does. But I would think that Chael Sonnen is going to be my pick for this fight. What do you think? What's your pick?
Yeah, I'm going to pick Sonnen in the fight. I do like Bisping. I like the fight better than the Munoz fight because it's 2 guys that have been to the top. They're arguably the 1 and 2 numbered top contenders in the division. And Munoz is still rising up to that. So I think it's a real qualifier fight. Winner gets Silva. And
a hard fight to bet, though. I'd probably pass as far as betting-wise on this fight. But let's move on. Another, like I said, great fight is Damian Maia. Now he's taking on Chris Weidman. He's stepping up to the plate. Weidman's another one of these guys, up-and-coming guys, very talented. We know about his wrestling background. We know about Maia's submission game. The line here is a lot more competitive. Right now, it's around minus 145, 150-ish for Chris Weidman, maybe slightly higher some places, but we're seeing action coming on Maia. So the public is betting Damian Maia. Give me your thoughts on this one. Who do you got?
Maia's talented, very good fighter, great ground game, but I sense that he's a little bit cautious in his MMA fights. And I worry about that against a guy like Weidman who can be explosive at times. And I think Weidman is in a good position to actually win this fight, and I would bet Weidman.
Okay, I agree with you. I think I'm going to take Weidman as well. I think he's going to make it interesting. He should be able to keep this fight on the feet. I think he's a grinder. Now, coming in on short notice, I'm pretty sure he's going to be on decent shape. And from what I heard, he's not going to be in terrible shape. But, of course, coming in on this short notice, it's going to affect you a little bit. But I still think Chris Weidman ends up grinding out a decision or even gets a stoppage against Damian Maia. So I think that's the side for this weekend. And almost tempted, if the line drops even more, might have to lay some slight juice on Chris Weidman in this fight. Okay, let's move on to the third fight and the main event, Rashad Evans versus Phil Davis. And I'm going to start with you on this one as well, Miguel. Rashad Evans is the favorite coming into this fight. He's sitting at approximately 160. Comeback on Phil Davis is around 130. What do you think of this one?
I'm going to go with Rashad all the way. It is a tough fight to pick, and they're both kind of similar in some ways. But Rashad's just got the experience, and there's a lot of the pre-fight interviews and pre-fight media hype that's been around the fight. I like what I see in Rashad. I see confidence. You know, I see him not looking past Phil Davis, but I see him thinking about the title shot and thinking about his whole career and the whole scope of everything he's got going on. I think he's just way advanced on Phil Davis in his career, and I think he's in the right position to win. And Phil, you know, he's still got a lot to work on. He still has a lot that he can learn. And I think this fight, he can take something out of it and learn something, but I think we see Rashad come out with his hand raised.
Well, I think a lot of people are going to agree with you on Rashad Evans, and that's why he is the favorite. He's got the experience edge, as you mentioned, and it seems like wrestling should cancel each other out here. But you know what? I don't think it's going to. I think Phil Davis's wrestling is going to be a little bit more superior than Rashad Evans, and if he does manage to get the scrambles and the takedown, I think he's going to be able to control more of this fight. In a 3-round fight, I think on the feet, it's going to be competitive. Maybe we're underestimating Phil Davis there as well. So honestly, I'm a little bit tempted here at the dog money, and I'm going to pick Phil Davis to upset Rashad Evans in this fight. I know it's not really the fan favorite pick here, but I think Davis, we might be underestimating him a little bit, and he could come away with the win. For those of you that want to get in on some of this weekend's UFC on Fox action, I urge you to head over to betdsi.com and get involved in their free handicapping contest.
It's absolutely free. All you have to do is go to the betdsi.com website and sign up. Once you sign in, you'll see the contest banner.
Yeah, it's one of the best contests by far in the business out there. They give away thousands of prizes. And once again, I mean, as Miguel and I mentioned numerous times, it's free. You guys got no risk at all. Sign up, get involved in the contest. It's a pretty awesome contest. All right, time for our Oddsbreaker segment, and let me introduce both guests first. Coming to us, our first guest, the founder of an MMA promotion called Hook and Shoot, and also the former commissioner of Bodog Fight, Jeff Osborne. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Hey, great to be here.
And once again, also joining us today is MMA handicapper extraordinaire, Luca Fury from ShareDog.com. Luca, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me again.
All right, guys, let's get right into it. BetDSI, our sponsor, has donated a $5K bankroll to both Luca and Jeff, and they each get to bet $500 either on the favorite or the underdog. I've selected 3 fights today and 1 extra bonus fight. We're going to start off with the first fight. It takes place in Sydney, Australia, UFC on FX2. Fight number 1 is the flyweight tournament debut. This one I've been looking forward to for a long time since the rumors took place here. It's a battle between Demetrious Johnson and Ian McCall. So first matchup of the tournament, we're going to head it over to Luca first. Luca, I'm going to open up this fight minus 260, Demetrious Johnson. The comeback on Ian McCall is going to be plus 200. Give me your take and give me your bet.
You know, I really like Demetrious Johnson in this fight. On paper, it's a pretty even matchup. You know, they're pretty even on the ground and the striking, but I think what the difference is going to be is the wrestling. Demetrious Johnson is a better wrestler here. Even if he's not doing well on the feet, I think he can get takedowns at Ian McCall. Ian McCall is a good scrambler, but so is Demetrious Johnson. And as we saw in Demetrious' fight against Miguel Torres, he has very good submission defense. So I think Demetrious Johnson's probably going to ride out a decision win here. I like him to win the fight, and I think you set that line just about spot on. I'm going to put my money on Demetrious Johnson.
All right, so Luca Fury is going to bet Demetrious Johnson laying 260. It's going to be $1,300 to win $500. Jeff, what do you think about this fight? Give me your take and give me your bet.
First off, I'm knowing Miguel and our history. Uncle Creepy's just a catchy name for me, but Ian McCall hasn't really fought on some. This will be his first trip to a big show, and it's in Australia, so there's going to be a time difference. I think if you've not fought internationally before, that has a lot of wear and tear on you. Johnson's been in there with the big guys. He's beaten Miguel Torres. He's won distance with Dominic Cruz. He's never, ever been finished, and I don't see that happening this time. I'm definitely going to put 500 on Demetrious Johnson. I think that's going to be a safe bet here.
All right, so Uncle Creepy getting no love from you guys yet, but it will be a great fight. But Jeff is also going to take Demetrious Johnson minus 260. Both you guys made very valid points. You're risking $1,300 to win $500. So when he does hit the sports book, this line is going to be slightly higher. All right, guys, let's complete the second part of this semifinal tournament bracket, and it's a battle between Japanese star Yashuhiro and Joseph Benavides. We're going to start off with Jeff first this time. Jeff, I'm opening up Benavides, a huge favorite actually. He's going to come in around 5-1. Minus 505. The comeback on Urushitani is going to be plus 355. Kind of a wide line. Give me your take and give me your bet.
Yeah,
Yeah, I am a betting man. I like taking a long shot sometimes, but this one, I mean, Benavides is tough. His only losses are decisions, so Urushitani is not going to finish him, in my opinion. Benavides had a split decision, lost to Dominic Cruz. Other than that, he's flawless, in my opinion. Urushitani's been around about 10 years now, and I'm a Shuto guy myself, but I think Benavides is going to be way too much for him. And, Benavides is a finisher. I really don't see this going past round number 2, so all my money's going to go on Benavides.
All right, so Jeff's not going to hesitate to lay that high price on Urushitani. It's going to be $2,525 to win $500. Let's get Luca's thoughts on this fight. Luca, what do you think?
It is a pretty steep line. Anytime a guy's minus 500 or more, it definitely makes you hesitate a little bit, even though he is a big favorite, or is likely to win, rather. But I really like Joseph Benavides in this fight. I mean, Urushitani, he's a good striker, particularly with his counterboxing, but he doesn't have particularly big power, and we've seen Joseph Benavides has a good chin. Almost all of Urushitani's fights have gotten decision. I think Joseph Benavides has the ability to finish him. Obviously, Joseph's best bet here is to take it to the ground where he's going to have a big advantage. I definitely think he can do so. But even if he does spend time on the feet, it's not like he's at the risk of being one-punch KO'd. If he starts losing that battle, he can always switch it and go to a wrestling mode, take it to the ground. I think he can absolutely do that. I think the most likely method of victory is probably a submission for Joseph Benavides, a guillotine here. We've seen all the up-and-male guys have a good guillotine. He's no different. So I definitely like Joseph Benavides pretty big in this fight. Yeah, the line is steep, but I'm still going to lay the money on him.
All right, so both of you guys laying that juice. It's going to be $2,500 again to win about $500 for Luca Fury. You guys are both laying the juice, and you guys agree on both semifinal fights. So it looks like the favorites are correct here early on, at least for the semifinal flyweight tournament that UFC is having. And I can't wait for this to take place here shortly. Moving on to the third fight from today's Oddsbreaker segment, comes to us from Sweden, UFC on Fuel TV 2. It's the headliner between Nogueira and Gustafsson. Now let's move over to Luca Fury first. Luca, I'm going to open up the light heavyweight phenom, Alexander Gustafsson, at minus 265. The comeback on Nogueira is going to be plus 205. Give me your thoughts and give me your bet.
I like Gustafsson in the fight here. Yeah, Nogueira is the more battle-tested guy, and he does have the experience, but I think stylistically it's a favorable matchup for Gustafsson here. I think the fight's definitely going to be a striking battle. We saw in Gustafsson's battle with Phil Davis that Phil Davis is one of the best wrestlers in the division, had very, very, very hard time getting Gustafsson to the ground, and at that point in his career, Gustafsson didn't even train wrestling. Now he's been training it ever since then. I think, Nogueira, he does have pretty flimsy takedowns. I don't think he's going to be able to take Gustafsson down. I think we see the battle play out on the feet, where I think Gustafsson's going to be able to use his size, his reach advantage. I think he's going to be able to pick Nogueira apart from the outside. Nogueira, people look at his striking and say it's so good. Well, it is good. It's actually pretty overrated, though. I mean, people look at the fact that he trained the Cuban boxing team, the fact that he knocked down Shogun in their fight, but his technique is still pretty sloppy. I think that's going to cost him here. I think Gustafsson's going to be able to pick his spots. I think there's going to be openings, and I see Gustafsson picking him apart on the feet.
Okay, so Luca Fury is going to lay the juice, minus 265 on Gustafsson. Now, your remaining bankroll is 1175, so it's going to be 1175 to win 443 on the favorite Gustafsson. Let's head it over to Jeff here. Jeff, what do you think? Nogueira is a veteran. It's going to be the toughest fight by far, I think, in Gustafsson's career. What do you think of this fight?
I agree with Luca in the fact that Rodrigo, he's a little overrated in his boxing. He's coming off a win, a victory over Tito Ortiz. Keep in mind, even though this was several years ago, Rodrigo also holds 2 wins over Alistair Overeem. He's faced high-quality opponents for the last 10 years. And granted, there's positive and negatives to that. And the fact he's been fighting for 10 years, he's very aged in the ring. Gustafsson, he's a killer on the feet. He's 10 years younger. He's done nothing but destroy grapplers and high-quality wrestlers. He's a fierce puncher, but he's never seen round number 3, and I think this could be a factor. I like Gustafsson. I love strikers. He's only submitted 3 guys, and those were all by rear naked choke. But Nogueira, he's not going to get knocked out. Nogueira's head's just too big to be knocked out. He's been dropped before. But I like the odds on this. I'm going to play the odds, and I'm an old-school guy, so I'm going to go with Nogueira on this. Very hard to finish.
Okay, good points, Jeff. So Jeff is going to risk 500 to win 1,025 on the underdog at +205 on Nogueira. And we're going to see how this battle takes place shortly at UFC on Fuel TV 2, which takes place on April 14th. Time for our bonus fight out today as the Oddsbreaker segment. Comes to us from Bellator 60. Bellator, great organization, so I try to mix in some of their fights as well on the Oddsbreaker segment. We're going to start off with Jeff first. It's a title fight in the featherweight division. The Bellator Championship's up for grabs between Pat Curran and Joe Warren. Now, Joe Warren is the champion, but I am going to open up the underdog in this fight. Pat Curran's going to come in at -255. The comeback on Joe Warren, +195. Jeff, give me your thoughts and give me your bet.
I like the money on this. I think these odds are dead on. I think Warren, I think this fight's going to go the distance. Even though Curran is a finisher, I can see Joe Warren kind of riding this out and getting a decision. You know, my heart's telling me that Pat Curran is probably going to win this, but for the money, I'm going to put it all on Warren just because I see this going the distance.
All right, so you're going to take the underdog here. Again, the bankrolls do not apply here. It's a bonus fight. We're throwing it in extra, but you are going to go $500 to win $975 on the champion, Joe Warren. And let's get Luca's thoughts on this. Luca, Pat Curran -255 or Joe Warren at +195?
Yeah, I like Pat Curran in this fight, and I'm pretty confident in his ability to win, actually. I mean, yeah, Joe Warren, he is the champion, and he has a pretty good record, 7-2, but you could easily argue that his last 5 fights should have all been losses. He's had some very, very questionable decisions, and his one knockout in the past 5 fights at a knockout win, that is, he did get knocked out himself in his last fight. Over Joe Soto, though, he was getting dominated in that fight, and then basically just got lucky with a punch to the back of Joe's head and finished him shortly after. So he hasn't looked too impressive lately. And on top of that, stylistically, the way he lines up with Pat Curran, I think it's a pretty favorable matchup for Pat. When Joe Warren's wrestling, he does have very good credentials, but he's had a lot of trouble taking guys down in fights in MMA. And his striking is pretty sloppy. And he gets hit a lot. I think that's going to be a bad situation here against Pat Curran. I think Pat Curran's going to be able to land early and often on him. I don't know if he's going to be able to finish Joe Warren, because Joe Warren does have a pretty good chin. But at worst case scenario for Pat Curran, I think he probably wins a pretty decisive decision here, and I like him even though he is a pretty big favorite. I'm going to put my money on him. All
right, so you guys are going to split actually on this fight. Jeff took Joe Warren, and you're going to take Pat Curran. It's going to be $1,275 to win $500 on -255 on Pat Curran here. And this should be a great fight. Pat Curran going for the featherweight gold once again. Let's see if he comes through. Okay, great job today, guys, on the Oddsbreaker segment, helping me break 4 original fight odds. This is the time of the show I like to let you guys have a couple moments to give a couple shout-outs or some words. Let's start off with Jeff first. Jeff, thank you for being a guest on today's show. Anything you'd like to say before we let you go?
I've been actually betting on MMA for, I guess, since the late 90s when people started breaking the odds out, but they weren't as educated and everything like that. But these odds, I think, are pretty spot on. I'd like to have a little more money on the Benavides fight, but I understand he's a massive favorite. I'm just having fun here, and I appreciate the opportunity. I thank you very much.
All right, we'd love to have you back on down the road. And let's throw it over to Luca. Luca, I know you're a busy guy, MMA handicapper extraordinaire. Your track record speaks for itself. Anything you'd like to say or any sites you'd like to plug before you go?
I just want to say thanks for having me. I always love doing your show. It's a great show in my opinion. And if people want to follow me on Twitter, they can do so at twitter.com/LucaFury. I tweet all sorts of things about MMA, mostly about betting though, so if you want to check that out.
All right, thanks guys, and we'll see you again soon.
Welcome back to Oddsbreakers. We're coming out of the Oddsbreaker segment where Nick and our special guests broke the odds on 4 fights that are coming up that are not on the sports books yet. Nick is going to adjust the odds right now. Nick, what'd you think of their bets?
I think they did really well. 4 hard fights again. I always try to pick some decent fights for the show. So we're going to start off with the first one, Demetrious Johnson versus Ian McCall. Now, Johnson opened up 2.5 to 1 favorite around -260. I'm going to have to adjust this line because they both did come in on it, and I think the public's going to agree with them as well. Ian McCall is a very game fighter. He's well-rounded. He's got great wrestling. I think it's going to be a very competitive fight. Probably maybe underestimating him slightly here, but I am going to adjust the line. It's going to be 285 when it does hit the sports books. Comeback's going to be +215. So the line is going to climb slightly higher on Demetrious Johnson, and we might see a hit over 3 to 1. What are your thoughts on this fight?
I tend to think Demetrious Johnson is going to win the fight. I think Ian McCall is definitely a game fighter, and he has a great chance. If those odds keep going up, I might bet Ian McCall, but I really do think Demetrious coming down to this weight class is a champion in the making. They've been saying that about him for a long time as he fought at 135, now at 125. He's the prodigal son. He's coming home to his weight class, and let's see him do his job. I'm going to go with Demetrious.
The second fight also from the UFC flyweight tournament. It's another semifinal bout between Yashuhiro Urushitani versus Joseph Benavides. Now, I opened Benavides as I think he's going to win the fight, a huge favorite, minus 505. And both of the guys didn't hesitate. They came in and laid that high juice on Benavides. Now, I have no choice but to kind of go up even more. I think I may be undervaluing Benavides here. So I'm going to raise the line minus 600. It's going to be plus 400 to come back on the Japanese star. I know he's good, Miguel, but what are your thoughts on this fight?
It's an interesting fight. The question here is not whether Benavides is any good, because he's a great fighter, and he's the favorite because by virtue of his resume, he's a great fighter. The question is how good is Urushitani? I'm a Shudo fan. I like where he's fought before. I think they were stronger a few years ago as an organization, but they put out really good fighters, and I'm giving Urushitani a submitter's chance, let's call it, instead of a puncher's chance. I think he could do something tricky and maybe get out of the fight. I think that's what he's going to need to do, and I think he may be able to do it. It's just the odds are too great for me to go on Benavides. I just can't do it myself. Urushitani is good. And if he doesn't get through this fight, I would like to see him again because I think he's a great fighter.
Well, he's ranked, in the top of the division in the world rankings, and the UFC brought him in for a reason. So, like you said, I think he's not a slouch by any means, but it's just a very difficult matchup for him. That's why Benavides is coming in such a high favorite. I do believe we're going to see some two-way action, but we're going to have to see on this fight. All right, Miguel, third fight coming to us from Sweden. It's a battle at light heavyweight between Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira and Alexander Gustafsson. Gustafsson, as you know, is the favorite, minus 265. Very game opponent, Nogueira at plus 205. Luca came in on the favorite, Gustafsson. And we had Jeff come in on the underdog, Nogueira. What do you think?
It's an interesting fight. I can see the split. Both guys have advantages, I think. I think Gustafsson is up and coming. His career trajectory is heading straight to the top. He looks really good. Very complete game. Nogueira, he's the kind of guy that, it's been a little while now that we've been waiting for him and his skills to start to fade a little bit for, ring time and things like that to catch up. It hasn't happened yet. Luca pointed out that his boxing is a little sloppy, and I tend to agree with him, when you compare him to boxers especially. But against the kickboxer, his stand-up's pretty good. If this fight's a stand-up fight, I'm going to go with Nogueira.
Well, it's going to be an interesting fight, no doubt. In the hometown pressure, I'm interested to see how that's going to work out. We've seen it benefit the Brazilians recently. Is it going to benefit Gustafsson here in this fight? We shall see. We shall see soon here.
Yeah, we definitely will see whether it is to Gustafsson's advantage. I credit Gustafsson with having a strong mind, though, and I think it will work in his favor.
All right, time for our bonus fight. We are going to mix in 4 fights from time to time, and today we selected Bellator 60 main event, a featherweight championship fight between champion Joe Warren and challenger Pat Curran. Now, it's one of these fights, again, that I'm opening up the challenger as the actual favorite in this fight. So Pat Curran minus 255 and the champion plus 195 on Joe Warren. But we had the champion was taken by Jeff. He liked the odds, plus 195, definitely on Joe Warren. But Luca agreed with me on the favorite, and he went with Pat Curran at minus 255. What are your thoughts?
Again, interesting fight. I give credit to Bellator. They're rolling out their champion here, Joe Warren. I think they had high expectations for him when he came in. He's met them with his title shots, but I think Luca has some points in what he was bringing up. And the bottom line is that he's got a good record, but some of those fights may have been questionable, maybe even could have gone the other way. I'm going to go with Curran on this fight just because I like Warren. I like his athleticism. I like his gameness. I like, the good attributes that he brings over from wrestling, but I think he's also a little bit stuck on his wrestling. And I don't know that he's learning MMA, whereas Curran's a pure MMA fighter, and I'll take one of those in an MMA fight all day long.
Yeah, the improvement on Curran has been tremendous. We've seen it in his submission game, his stand-up game, and now the confidence coming off that big win over Marlon Santos. So his confidence is going to be at all-time high. It's going to be a very tough fight for the champion, Joe Warren, and I think he's going to probably get his belt taken from him that night as well.
Welcome to the MMA Oddsbreakers mailbag segment. If you have any questions about MMA for me or Nick, or any questions about the odds that Nick is breaking right here on the show, go ahead and send us an email to MMAOddsbreakers@gmail.com. If we use your question right here on the show, we will go ahead and include a free gift if you send your address. So go ahead and get those emails out. This week's question comes to us from Chicago and our buddy Nicolo. He wants to know if the recently announced fight in Europe between Mirko Krokop and Ray Sefo has the potential to relaunch Mirko's career. What do you think, Nick?
At this point, I don't think Mirko has anything to prove. I don't think, will it relaunch his career? No, I mean, it'll be a good win, definitely. He gets that win in his home country, of course. But is he going to come back and be a contender once again? I don't think so. I think pretty much if he beats Sefu, which I don't know, that's a task. I mean, in his home country, you would think he's got advantages in doing so and winning the fight a little bit more. But I think Sefu has got a great chance at this point in their careers of maybe getting the knockout as well. A tough fight. I don't think it's going to, even with the win, boost his career to the level it once was, put it that way.
Yeah, I look at it the same way. I think Mirko Cro Cop is done on the world stage. This fight is in Croatia. I think it's a gimmick for him to, maybe a coming home type of thing. I'd almost even worry about, some type of results. It's K1 rules. It's not MMA. This does nothing for Mirko in terms of MMA or the future. We've seen the last of Mirko Cro Cop in MMA. Well, that's it for another episode here of MMA Oddsbreakers. You can look for the odds that Nick broke right here on the show to start popping up at the sports books by the end of the week. And we want to send a big special thanks to our guests, Jeff Osborne and Luca Fury. Thanks, guys.
And for all the latest show updates, make sure you check out our Twitter page at MMA Oddsbreaker. For Miguel Iturrate, I'm Nick Kalikas saying until next time, enjoy the fights.